Hi, my name is Lisa Manganello. I'm a librarian at South Brunswick High School. This is my 13th year as a librarian here, and over that time, I have worked from kindergarten all the way up through seniors in high school. So I have a pretty broad range of ideas for kids. That's part of what made me want to present this topic, which is creating a virtual library, keeping our students connected through books. You'll notice that my contact information and a tiny URL to my presentation and my resource documents is included. So if you want any of the links, you'll be able to get that through those. So let's get started. All right. So during the next 30 minutes, I will share how to create a virtual safe space by sharing reading resources. We know what a safe space looks like in our schools. We can see it and sense it when we see it in a classroom or in a library, but what does it look like now that we are learning remotely? How do we create a virtual space that our kids feel comfortable going to and beginning their work in? We're going to access and share some free reading resources. One of the good things that's come out of all of this is that companies have been tremendously generous with the types of resources that they've shared for parents, students, and families and teachers. So if there's something that we talk about, the possibility is that it's open for you to use for free at this time. Many of these offers have continued through the end of the school year. So look for that as you're beginning to investigate these resources. We're also going to talk about some free online tools that you can use to build a virtual community of readers. And one of these that I've used really successfully is Flipgrid. So we'll talk about what that looks like. And my high school is using it, but so is my K-5 school and my 6-8 school. So there's a lot of products that work on all levels of kids to build that sense of community that we want to maintain. But my first question is, what does a safe space feel like? When we walk into a classroom or a school library, we can immediately, as experienced educators, know that we are in a safe space. And that safety, that feeling of comfort and understanding that we look for, we feel in those spaces, needs to continue in this new virtual world because our kids really need it. So a safe space, in my vision, has 5 components, and all of these are connected to reading. You'll notice down in the lower corner, my state organization, the New Jersey Association of School Librarians, is represented because the information on this screen actually comes from a position paper that they published on the importance of reading and librarians to a student's social emotional learning. So my first thing that every safe space is going to need is the ability to highlight a variety of viewpoints, cultures, and experiences. The kids that we teach come from a range of backgrounds. It's a rich and interesting tapestry. We need to develop literature and provide access to literature that addresses those particular interests. We also want to expand our kids' thinking beyond what they know and what their experiences have been. And that's really key to developing empathy. And if there's ever been a time for empathy, we all know it's now. So being able to build that into our lessons as we teach our kids is super important. We want this safe space, this virtual place, to be welcoming for all students. So everyone in your classroom will feel at home there. And we want to be able to support good mental health through the selection and shared reading experience. So we want kids to be able to both have access to browse and look for books that fit their interests, but we also want to give them a way to connect with each other and with us through a shared reading experience. And we're going to talk about how to do both those things, because this is really our end goal. We want to continue nurturing these readers. Well, how do we do that when we are all separated at this time? So the first page of resources, and you'll notice there's a lot of text on my slides. I'm not going to read from that text. I'm just going to leave it there as a placeholder for when you have time to go back and investigate. This will give you a little reminder of what it is that this resource particularly spotlights. Now, our state library associations have been fantastic in this. Both of them have stepped up and really provided some great resources. The top resource is Wakelet, and it's a Wakelet of tools, resources, all sorts of interesting products that teachers can turnkey now for remote instruction. And we're going to look at this from a reading perspective. The reading portion of their site, and one of the reasons that this is so interesting to me, is that they give you some great reading resources. So everything from Audible, which has opened up its collection and is allowing people to download without a paid subscription some of the audio recordings that might be great to use with your students, to a variety of other publishers and sites that have opened up their information to us. The other piece on that main page that we talked about is the Unlock Student Potential. Now, this is a partnered group between the New Jersey Library Association and the New Jersey Association of School Librarians and JASL. The two organizations have come together to give you one-stop shopping for reading, research, and all sorts of tools that our kids have access to as residents of the particular communities they live in. Now, the reading resources are what's of interest to me here, so we're going to look more carefully at those. Our reading resources are going to spotlight the things that are most commonly held in the collections of public libraries. We're going to look at Hoopla, and we're going to look at Libby as our two choices. Both of these should be available from a local public library. Now remember, I know that you're thinking, but my kids don't have library cards. My families are not library visitors. Well, this may be a great opportunity for you as an educator to begin a relationship with your local public library. So what kind of relationship might that look like? Let's look at what mine looks like, and then we'll get a sense of what in particular we may want to be investigating. So this is my public library, South Brunswick Public. It's where I live, it's where I work, and it's a fantastic library. You'll notice something, and this is probably true for many of our public libraries. I did a little investigating before I recorded this presentation so that I would feel like I knew across the state what public libraries were doing. And many public libraries are creating virtual homepages that allow their borrowers or their patrons to get library cards, connect with a librarian, get to the ebook collections, do everything seamlessly from the homepage. You'll notice on mine, we have a chat with a librarian. So if you have a question about what is appropriate for your kids or what they have access to based on where they live, this might be a great connection for you. And it's a good connection to build going forward because the public library offers a lot of tools that we as schools don't have the money to give our kids. So take advantage of those great resources. Now we're going to look at ebooks. So if we scroll down, you'll notice we have ebooks down towards the bottom. As I mentioned, we have two main providers, and many public libraries will have one or the other, or they may have both. We're going to start out with Libby, which is the first on our list. And my Libby, actually, because I'm a high school librarian, is set right to go to my teen population. You'll notice that once you're here, you can browse very easily. So kids actually love it because you see lots of pictures and very little text on the first screen. So it's a great browse feature. With the Fire on High, fantastic book by Elizabeth Acevedo. If you haven't read it, listen to the audiobook. It's so good. She reads it, so she's a really good reader. I think an audiobook is better when it's read by a really skilled reader. So anyway, if I wanted this book, first I can tell it's available to me. It's got a red available title at the top. All I'm going to do is simply click on it, and then I'm going to borrow it. And I can do that with 2 clicks. This borrowed book will end up on my phone, my tablet, my computer, whatever electronic device that I do my work on, this book can be put on. So that's one thing to know. Now, you'll notice I picked an available book. You can sort by books that are available rather than books that may have a wait list so that you see only available books. For kids that tend to be impatient, this is a great strategy to give your kids because they're going to be able to get to a book that they can actually check out very quickly. Now, in addition to Libby, which is our first product, we have Hoopla. And Hoopla has all sorts of media. You can see that here. And the nice thing about Hoopla is you can borrow up to 5 titles a month, but right now they have bonus borrows. And this is in response to the quarantine, in response to the pandemic, the company has come out with bonus buys. And what that means is, you'll notice here it says, this title is part of the bonus buy collection. So there's a number of books you can borrow that won't count against that 5-book limit. They also have these great read-along books. So Tacky the Penguin is my read-along book. I'm going to say resume. Let's see if Tacky will talk to you so you can see what it sounds like. So in addition to audiobooks and ebooks, they also have some of these, which are they will read with you. Let's see if we can get this to read.
Goodly, lovely, angel, neatly and perfect, always marched 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Tacky always marched 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 6, 0, 2.5, 0.
So in addition to being a great book, it's also a bit of entertainment, because remember, books are our escape. Books are an escape for our kids. They're going to get them out of the everyday routine and give them something to look forward to. Even if it's not something they can actually go out and do right now, it's something that can brighten their day, make them more engaged, and give them an outlet for all that creativity. So Tacky the Penguin, you could share it on, if you are meeting with your kids on Zoom, or if you're meeting with your kids on Google Meet, or some other method where you actually see them on the screen, you could do this as a read aloud. You could also give them the ability to know how to get to this book and then have them check out a book of their own choosing. You can see how easy it is to sort of come up with a list that the children can check from. So both of those are fantastic. And as I said, check in with your public library, see what services they can provide, because that's really going to be great for all of your readers at this point. All right, now, free resources. So many people have been so generous with their time. Mondays with Michelle Obama is a fantastic example of this. If you click on the link, you are going to get the PBS Kids YouTube site, which is a perfectly safe place to send our kids.
Hi, I'm Michelle Obama, and welcome to Mondays with Me, a series of stories with PBS Kids and Penguin Random House. Today I'm going to share this book called Miss Maple Seeds, written and...
So the nice thing about this is, first of all, she's publishing to YouTube. So you can get the YouTube link and you can share it with your kids. You could share it via Google Classroom. You could share it in any electronic form to get your kids directly to the story that you want them to read. The other thing that's great is she's working with a publisher. So the kids here, in addition to her narration of the picture book, they also see the pictures on the screen as the video progresses. She's got a lot of good choices here, and it's just a great way to have kids interact with a book in a different way. And that's what we're looking for right now. We're looking for ways that we can interact with material in a new way that supports our readers. Now, Story Seeds is fantastic. This is a podcast, and it's aimed at a younger audience, but the audience is actually participating, and they're matched with really well-known authors. So let me show you some examples. Basically what Story Seeds are is, just as we develop a story in the classroom, this is a story that's co-developed between a child who has an idea and a published author who wants to help develop that idea. And you can see there's some great authors represented here. Now, one of my personal favorites is, and I'm scrolling slowly so you can take a look, Dan Gutman, who wrote the My Weird School series. So he's working with 11-year-old Hannah, and they're coming up with a story based on Hannah's ideas. Now, the thing I love about this is a great spark for a lesson. This could be, I want to have a lesson about group storytelling, and we're going to develop a story together. You could do this with a shared document of any type, a Google Doc, something the kids can contribute to, and they're all writing together. This could be done, and it doesn't have to be done over a Zoom meeting. So if you have kids that can't get on a computer at a particular time because they have siblings or parents that have to be on, or they don't have a reliable wireless connection, you could absolutely do this as a week or 2-week activity where when they have a chance, they go in and add to the story and develop the story. But the Story Seeds podcast could give you a good inspiration for that. And it's great to share that sort of how people work together on literature with our kids. Now, in addition to that, we have Scholastic. Who doesn't love Scholastic to begin with? I mean, Clifford and the Big Red Dog, they rock. However, Scholastic rocks even harder now because they have opened up many of their Scholastic products to teachers, students, and families in the pandemic. The two things that I have on my screen here are Book Flicks and the Scholastic Classroom Magazine. So if you're looking for nonfiction texts to draw out a reading response or to engage your kids who are even up through middle school, Scholastic Classroom Magazine is a fantastic choice. Book Flicks is great for our little guys, and you can see that I gave you a link here which takes you to the resource page that Scholastic has put out for their teachers during the pandemic. And those teachers have the ability to see exactly what is free and open access from Scholastic. Things like Science Flicks, if you're looking for science videos, Dave Pilkey at Home, which, wow, who doesn't want to watch Dave Pilkey ever? Dogman is a huge hit everywhere, as is Captain Underpants. But we also have Book Flicks, which my public library subscribes to, but is also available right now through the pandemic and will remain that way through the remainder of the school year, which is it's a great trial if you haven't used this source already. So let me show you Book Flicks. Book Flicks looks like this, and as I said, typically you would log into this via your public library card, but Book Flicks is being opened for access from Scholastic. So in this case, I'm going to look at one of their pairings, and their books are, you can tell their site is very much geared towards children, because as we begin to move over it, it will talk to us, it will move. So even for your emergent readers or your not quite ready to read independently readers, you may be able to use this site. Let's do the ant and the grasshopper. So we pair a Weston Woods video, which is going to do a fiction story, with a nonfiction book that the children can read. And when we click on it, you will get inside the ant colony. Let's open it. Let's listen to it. Well, they can read themselves or they can read along.
Ants always seem to be busy. You often see them hurry out of a hole in the ground or scurry back into it.
Too fast for your kids? We can slow it down.
Ants always seem to be busy.
You can click to start it where you'd like to, and there's all sorts of supporting activities over to the left-hand side. So lots of great ideas here. Now, the other thing that I want you to be aware of, in addition to Scholastic, is some more of my favorites. We want to build a community of readers. To do that, we have to inspire kids to want to read. There are no more inspiring people in the world than Kwame Alexander and LeVar Burton when it comes to reading. Kwame Alexander is a young adult author, poet, and he is a fantastic speaker. We heard him at our NJSL conference last year, and he was so inspiring with the way he makes books come alive to kids. And his podcast is called Bookish. I'm going to let it introduce itself so that you can hear it.
Hey, what's up? This is Bookish.
Bookish, baby.
Yes, this is going to be the. No. Let's come in with. I came in with energy, and you came in like you were playing the blues.
You want to play
I need you to give me some.
All right, let's do.
All right, here we go. What's up? This is Bookish. I'm Kwame Alexander, and this is the smoked salmon episode. Wait, what?
So you can tell by the way the podcast begins that it's nothing but fun. It's book driven. He's going to talk to you about, and he's going to talk to your kids about the power of reading. He's going to pair himself with guests, authors, librarians, people who love to read. and inspire kids to want to read. The nice thing about Kwame Alexander, and a great community building activity, is that he also does a segment on NPR's Morning Edition each month focused on poetry. And those poetry challenges that he issues on NPR each month are great activities to bring into your classroom. You can have the kids respond to a prompt. You can then send the prompt into NPR. That's a great builder. Or you can just keep them within your classroom and just use their prompts as a jumping off point. But great way of looking at poems and looking at how poetry builds our community. So I love Kwame Alexander. The other one on my list, and this is me, a child of the 70s and 80s. I love LeVar Burton. I grew up on Rooting Rainbow, and listening to LeVar Burton read is an amazing experience. And he does it now on a podcast called LeVar Burton Reads. Now, in his infinite generosity during the pandemic, he's reading to kids in the morning, teens in the afternoon, and a separate short story for adults in the evening. He's just a great introducer of story. So he tells you, gives you a little background on the story. He sometimes does live interviews with the authors just to get more information. He's done everyone from Ray Bradbury all the way up through contemporary authors and everyone in between. So great ways, and both of these can be put via link on your classroom, shared via email. However you're communicating with your kids, they have access to these, and they'd be able to get that, and you could build an entire unit around a short story that he's reading and have them do connecting activities to that short story that might be able to build our community. Now, sync audiobooks for teens. I'm super excited about this one because I just got my first audiobook the other day. You can sign up, and it's a simple sign up. You can see here, all you do is put your email address in to register. You do not have to be a teen, because I'm obviously not. And each week, there's a window of time when you can download 2 free audiobooks. You do this via the Sora app. But it's very easy because once you put your email address in, they give you a step-by-step way to get these audiobooks. You can even set yourself a text reminder that a new audiobook has come out, so you remember to come back and get the audiobook. This audiobook is going to stay on your device as long as you'd like it. It doesn't return. You don't have to worry about it disappearing. It's just going to stay with you. So the first 2 titles are Monday's Not Coming by Tiffany Jackson, which is fantastic. And I'm really looking forward to this one because I loved Allegedly. The 57 Bus is a nonfiction book, which we did as a school-wide read last year. It's the story of 2 teens who are on a bus in Oakland, California. One makes a decision that changes both of their lives forever. And we look at the aftermath of that decision and what happens to both of them. But you can take a preview and see what's going to be available in the coming weeks so that you can see which titles you might want to download or recommend for your students. Remember, part of this community building is recommending books. Recommending books is such a powerful way to connect with kids and connect to what we want them to do or what we can do together. So, okay, great. I've given you a ton of resources. Your head is spinning. But how can I build a virtual community for my students? We've already started some of that. If you're doing anything online to try to connect with your kids, that's a community. But how do we grow that? How do we make that more substantial? And how do we involve the kids in creating that? The best way that I've found is something called Flipgrid. And I gave you the introductory video here, which shows you in a 2-minute video of how you actually sign up for a Flipgrid, what it is, and how it works. They're free accounts. You can use a password so you can secure your Flipgrid so that you have it. And then once you have this grid, your possibilities are endless for how you build your community. Let me show you my Flipgrid and I'll give you some ideas. Hold on, let's go back. Okay. All right, so this is my Flipgrid, and you'll notice that my kids actually log in with Google to get to it. So we have school Google accounts, therefore that's how they enter. And it will ask me, for security's sake, who I am. All right, and once I'm here, this is what a flipped grid looks like. Now I have my flip grid title and I have a little message. School without school is hard. Isn't that the truth? Let's share what we're reading to try to keep each other from going stir crazy while we're stuck at home. Remember, the South Brunswick Public Library has ebooks for checkout with your library card. Email me if you need help. Check back each day to see my book recommendations and feel free to chime in if you agree or disagree. So in addition to actually having kids upload videos here, which is easy, okay, so they can record them from their phone, from their computer. It's a moderated site, which means I control what can be seen here and I preview everything first. But you can see here are my videos about the different pieces of what I've been reading lately. I also have teachers that contribute and I'm looking for students to contribute as well. Sometimes they contribute via comment. They can do that as well. So that's what a flip grid looks like. My flip grid, as I said, is to share a book, but you could do this as a reading response. You could do this as a reflection on a day's lesson. You could have the students go in and watch each other's flip grids, which is the nice thing about that open platform is they see that grid. They see all the responses once you have allowed them into your classroom. So they can go in and watch each other and comment back on each other. So it's a nice way to start a dialogue, even if you can't have all of your kids in front of you at exactly that time. All right. So in conclusion, remember that regardless of the resource or the tool, reading together encourages connections. I tried to give you some ideas over the last 30 minutes, but really keep that in mind. Empathy is something we need to focus on right now, and our good mental health is critical to both us, our teachers, and our students. So if we can find ways to connect with books and offer kids an opportunity to escape what's happening and dive into a book and share that with us, that's a really important thing to nurture our kids going forward. All right, so it has been a pleasure to talk to you. And that's my contact information. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. I'd be glad to hear from you and hear how you are doing in this quarantine and figuring out how to keep your connection with your kids. All right, guys, thanks so much for coming.